Hello, Kate. Great. Well,
Hi Dave, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Good to see so many faces on today. And good afternoon, everyone. Great to have you all with us for the next ACDC coaching calibration webinar. I'm David McQueen, one of the directors at GRIST, and you'll also recognise that I'm joined by Kate Golby, one of our superb senior behavioural analysts. So, Kate, how are you going today?
I am doing well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, going along very nicely, thank you. Yeah, getting closer to Christmas. So,
looking forward to it, yeah.
Very nice. Okay, one of the things that always strikes me, we've been working together for a long time now, and you've listened and observed thousands of these coaching sessions over the years. And tell me, so what is it about assessing coaching conversations that keeps it so interesting to you?
I think for me, it's the fact that because they're real, genuine conversations that we're actually, eavesdropping into, I guess, for lack of a better word, they're all unique. There's something different about every single one of them, and it's about it's like a little puzzle to be solved to make it our benchmarks adaptable to those unique conversations. And we find that obviously as coaches tend to get better at their ACDC model, and coaching in general, that they do tend to get better at a pattern or a flow of a conversation. But still those conversations, anything can happen when you're sort of with a team member, and so many different scenarios that just it's really interesting each time.
Yeah. Each conversation is unique, isn't it? And
yeah,
as you say, there is a pattern, and there is a rhythm, and that's some of the things that we're here to talk about. So everybody, we've titled today's webinar, Do They Know What I Mean? Because today is where we start to shift the coaching conversation from a current state conversation to a future or a desired state conversation. And it's where we discuss what our team members are going to do after the coaching sessions ends. So here, as coaches, we want to have really high levels of confidence that our team member understands both what they need to do, but also how to do it well. And I know from my own experience as a coach that I'm not always confident that the goals that my team member and I have created during the coaching session are actually going to be achieved. Too often our team members can agree with our goals and actions, and they say, yeah, no, I've got that, I can do that. And yet when we come back to review later on, the goal isn't achieved or progress has been really slow. So we're going to have a look into what we can do as coaches so that we can say, yeah, I know, they know what I mean. Yeah. So to kick off, what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick review of the behaviours that we've calibrated so far, because we've got a few new people joining us today. And then Kate is going to take us through some examples of good and not so good coaching behaviours around the desired state, this future state of the conversation, before we finish, as we normally do, with setting a tiny behavioural-based goal for you to implement in your own coaching sessions. And as is the case with these webinars, we've got both coaches and observers attending today. So coaches, today's webinar is designed for you so that you can understand each of the coaching behaviours and perform the best possible self-assessment of your own coaching performance. As we've spoken about, self-assessment and the process of self-reflection is the practice of highest performing leaders. And it's also the fastest way to become an effective coach. If you're joining us for the first time, you're probably here looking at how GRIST use the process of calibration and self-assessment to help coaches unlock the potential of their people. And so a big welcome to you all. For coaches, we aim to be finished around 2:25 and for the observers, we ask that you do stick around for the last 5 minutes so that we can talk to you about the options available to you should you want to know more. Okay, as much as we can, we'd love to hear your thoughts along the way. So please make the most of the chat function. You may be asked to do so at different times. And we're also going to ask you to use the annotation tool. And you can find it by moving your mouse up to the top of the screen until you see this navigation bar appear. If you click the annotate symbol, then you choose a symbol and you can actually create your mark on the screen itself. So we'll ask you to do that at different times. Let's just put it to the test right now. So what you'll see on the screen is ACDC, and here's a question for you all. which phase of a coaching conversation is most important for driving behavioural change in your team members? Is it the agenda, the current state, desired state, or commitment? So let's test those annotation tools. Give us an idea what your thoughts are. Couple going. Okay, so really strong in the commitment phase. Good. So glad to see your annotation tools working well. Look, we're not sure there's a definitive answer to this question. All of the ACDC phases are important, but we do think that today's focus on the desired state is critical to helping your team successfully shift their behaviours. We do have a number of you joining us for the first time. So what we're going to do is give you a quick overview of GRIST's ACDC coaching methodology and recap what we've covered off in the webinar series so far. As you'll be aware, ACDC, it's an intent-based leadership conversation framework. And that means that it's a conversation structure that you can use for many of your leadership conversations. And obviously it's great for a tactical behavioural coaching conversation, but have you ever considered how useful it might be in your team meetings or in group skill sessions? It's even terrific when used as a structure to provide great feedback.
So each of these phases of the conversation have their own intent statement that you can see there below each of the phase titles. And essentially that is the why the phase is important. It guides you through what you're trying to achieve at each of the phases of your coaching conversation. And then each phase is broken down into 5 smaller behaviours, highlighting, the key moments in an effective ACDC coaching conversation.
Yeah, and we call these small behaviours micro behaviours. They're the most simplest form of a behaviour. So a GRIST micro behaviour has 4 qualities. First, it's got to be observable. And that is, it needs to be expressed in terms of what needs to be seen or heard in your coaching session. And what that means is that it becomes easy for any of us to actually assess it. So did I see or hear the behaviour in that conversation? As you could imagine, there are hundreds of different coaching behaviours to choose from, but to be a GRIST micro behaviour, it must be predictive of a performance outcome. So for example, we all know that using your team member's name is something that you need to do in a good coaching session, but how critical is that behaviour to achieving real change? While it is important, it doesn't make our top 20 behaviours because there are other behaviours that correlate more strongly to achieving a great outcome. And lastly, our micro behaviours must be 100% in the control of the individual. If, for example, it requires another person or a system to do the behaviour, well, it may be important. If it's not in control of the coach, we don't include behaviours like that. So what it means is that micro behaviours are really easy for people to understand and easy to do. They're easy for everyone to observe and therefore coach to, and they build a shared understanding across large groups of people and really bring to life on-the-job learning. Micro behaviours give everyone a language for discussing and assessing performance in terms of behaviour rather than just outcomes. And importantly, for all of us here today, they enable a more valid and reliable way to assess our own coaching behaviour. So let's have a look at the micro behaviours we've explored in the first 2 webinars.
So we started off in our first session, getting our sessions off to a really strong start with our agenda phase, where the aim was to build buy-in and commitment for a coaching conversation by giving, some context and setting the scene. So the 5 micro behaviours of the agenda phase were the engaged team member and state the focus for the coaching conversation. And then we needed to provide some kind of link to a larger overarching goal or even a previous coaching session to make sure that the sessions didn't feel like, 50 first dates. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead a little bit there. Next, we needed to give the conversation some kind of structure, and that was by providing, a 2 or more step agenda, and then seeking the team members' buy-in that this was an important conversation to have.
And then last month, we looked at the current state, and that kind of makes sense in that before you determine where you're going, it's a really good idea to know where you're starting from. This phase was about creating the awareness and ownership of the current results, the current behaviours that led to those results, and the link between the two. So to guide us through this part of the conversation, we started by discussing the current outcomes achieved in any given scenario, and we explored the positive or not so positive behaviours that produced those outcomes. You know, sometimes we have to add our own observations to add a little bit more supporting evidence to our conversation before we discuss the link and between the behaviours that led to the particular outcome. And it's always important to stop, check in, and get that buy-in about what's been discussed, and it's an accurate reflection of the current state. So today we're ready to transition our conversation to the desired state, where we really have to get clear on what needs to be done in order to achieve a better outcome. So if we look at that intent statement here, the intent of the desired state is to build an understanding and ownership of the behaviours that need to be demonstrated to achieve the desired result. And at this point, you know, you really start to hear a shift in the language that coaches use as we move from what has happened to what you need to do or want to do. It's like changing gears in a car, and as your conversation like moves into hyperdrive. So the key here is to ensure that your team members buy in, and that is that they buy into doing it differently. That will actually then yield a better outcome. You know, unfortunately, we see too many coaches move to the commitment phase without actually getting the team member to agree and go, yep, I can see how doing that differently will get a better outcome. It's such a critical part of driving that commitment phase later on. And of course, if they don't do that, what happens is that the commitments that are locked in are highly unlikely to happen. I mean, has that ever happened to you? You know, together, you actually work with your coachee, you set out what you thought were pretty clear goals and actions, only to come back a week later to find that very little has been done. Now, this phase of the conversation actually helps fix that. So, not surprisingly, there are 5 micro behaviours that can help achieve this. Before we share the behaviours, you know, it's important to remember here that the goal is to actually achieve the intent of the desired state phase. The goal here is not necessarily just to tick off each and every coaching micro behaviour. Achieving the intent of the phase is always the goal. So, here are the coaching behaviours that are the strongest link to achieving the clarity that you need. First, we need to establish what the desired outcome would be, and then we need to break it down into the behaviours that will deliver that outcome. Trying to find, you know, really 1 or 2 behaviours that are most likely to help here is key. Having a shopping list of behaviours, it kind of rarely works. And one of the best ways to see if the selected behaviour actually works or not is to practice it. You know, the most obvious way here is through role play, role play in some way. But, you know, again, we'll talk about that in a bit more and different options that you have around that. And then next, we must ensure that our team member can see the cause and effect link between the new behaviour and achieving the desired outcome. That link is important. And lastly, we check in again to gain buy-in for the new behaviours. I mean, if there's no buy-in at this point, why would you move through to getting a commitment? If you don't have buy-in, you've probably got to go back and have a look at either a new or a different outcome, or even different behaviours to achieve that outcome. So that kind of gives us an overview of what we're going to cover today. And we can kind of see the link between these desired state behaviours and actually confidently knowing that my team member knows what I mean, you know, when it comes to what to do differently. You know, the proof is in the practice pudding, because if you can't see or hear your team member doing the new behaviour, how can you feel confident that they actually know what to do? So, Kate, shall we have a walk through each of these behaviours in some more detail?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so at this point here, we're at the desired state. So we've set up our session with our agenda, established our team members' baseline with our current state phase, and now it's time to set our gaze, I guess, forward into the future, you know, looking at that, you know, that big Everest, that desired outcome that we want. But, you know, how do we get there? So the 5 behaviours of the desired state will work as, I guess, a personal Sherpa to guide you through, like, both the coach and the team member through that that process. So I'll be taking a deep dive again into those 5 behaviours, covering, you know, why they contribute to an effective coaching session, the impact on both the team member and the coach, and the impact of not doing them. As always, I'll be including some audio examples, and it just gives you an idea of how that could hopefully sound once you get onto the right path. So let's just get started. Okay, so establishing a clear desired outcome, or where the team member wants to be, is crucial to creating a drive to improve. So it gives them a finish line to reach, a clear visual on where they could be if provided with a direction as to why the team member should change their behaviour. Unlike current outcomes, desired outcomes don't need to be explicitly stated as desired. So when a link between a desired behaviour and a favourable outcome is discussed, that favourable outcome can be considered a desired outcome. It's understood in the context of the conversation that it is the desired outcome. I'll give you an example because that can get a little bit confusing. So here's an example of how it might sound. I think if we work on engaging early, I'll be able to get my NPS up. So from that example, in this case, that boosted NPS is implied as a desired outcome. The key aspect here is that the team member must be involved in that discussion and not simply told what a desired outcome is from their coach. By not doing this, the team member may not understand the importance of the why and why to change the behaviour, and that results in a real feeling of apathy and lack of follow through. Let's listen to another example how that might sound.
So how would you like it to play out next time?
I think just a little bit slower so that the customer has the time to understand what I'm saying and it's clear in their mind.
And happy customers are loyal customers, am I right?
Too right.
Okay. You mentioned that it's important that the team member is actually involved in establishing the desired outcome. Give us an insight to why is that so important?
Yeah, so that that discussion process between the two parties really just, I guess, engenders an ownership of the goal and the willingness to want to work on it on behalf of the team member. Actually, I've got an example of how it might sound if a coach simply told the team member what the desired outcome is. So let's maybe have a listen to that and you can tell me how you think it differs.
If we could just, let's think about what we want from this conversation. At the end of the day, we just want customers to be pleased. Don't you reckon?
Yeah, well, that's what we're here for.
So you can kind of hear how the coach there ended with a fairly closed question, essentially, just asking for a yes or no response from their team member. Do you think that has the same impact on a team member?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, you can't really tell if the team member is on board with this direction or they're just agreeing with their coach, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right, so next up we have the desired behaviours. So those of you who have come along to the last session might remember my iceberg current behaviour analogy. Essentially what it came down to was that micro behaviours are small actions that we can see someone do if we look closely, and that they're 100% in the control of that individual. Desired behaviours work exactly the same way, but they're in our future. So Whitney Houston was onto something when she sang about, I believe the children are our future, teach them well and let them lead the way. Desired behaviours are our little children and we need to teach them. So this process of identifying the behaviours that need to be tweaked in order to achieve a desired outcome can be quite tricky if done independently. But with the support of a coach, a team member has an open and consequence-free space to experiment with the approach. Without this understanding, team members will likely be confused and unable to make much progress, and this may result in them becoming quite anxious and stressed in their role, as the problem has been identified in the current outcomes and the desired outcomes, but they haven't really discussed a solution. Let's have a listen to how that might sound.
You're really close to getting it right, I think, from what we could hear. What's a small edit we can make to make this behaviour even greater?
I think that it's just going that extra mile to check whether they're happy with that outcome. So like, yep, I've given them the summary, that's great, but then just that one extra question to see if they're happy with it.
Yeah, what I liked about that example, Kate, was when the coach said, what's the small edit that we can make? You know, this ends up being the moment that the team member really started to think about their behavior. It's the moment that, you know, it's becoming really clear about what needs to be done differently. You know, Kate, you know, are there any other types of questions that you hear coaches ask that are really effective in this identifying the desired behaviors phase?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I mentioned up front, all conversations are unique, but somehow these same kind of questions do tend to pop up in a lot of conversations. So questions like, what would you say differently next time? Or if I was watching, what would I see you do differently? Are ones that tend to pop up, and they're really great for getting the team member to start thinking about those behaviours.
Yeah, we can really hear how specific the team member has to be here. I mean, that's really important, right? So when they describe what needs to be done so specifically, you can see how it actually ends up making it easier in the latter part of the conversation to produce that SMART goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So practice is our next behaviour. Now, practicing in a two-way role play is a really effective method of ensuring that team members understand a behaviour and that they can confidently perform that in a situational way. So they're a great opportunity to workshop and, you know, tailor scripting to a team member and make them feel comfortable, which increases the likelihood that they're going to attempt that behaviour when they're back in the field. Without practice in a safe space, team members may do the behaviour or action poorly when they get back out there, or it might mean that they avoid demonstrating that behaviour altogether just because their fear of the great unknown. Also, when a behaviour is performed poorly in the field and with a customer or a client, you'll find that creates that anxious feeling, and then team members are likely to want to try it again. So I'm sure you're absolutely aware, if you've done any kind of coaching before, that team members have an absolute morbid fear of the words role play. So the best thing to do is address that, make it fun, set the context of a safe space. And anything goes, and most of all, just encourage your team members. So let's have a listen to how that could be done.
All right, so let's give it a go. I'll pretend to be the customer and you be the agent, and we have just solved the inquiry.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm being the customer. Now, oh great, thanks Tim, that summary was really great.
Oh, I'm glad. And has that resolved your inquiry for today?
Brilliant. Oh, sorry, I just jumped out of roleplay mode. But that's all it is, just that one question.
Yeah, it makes sense when doing your own conversation. Kate, I've got many of my clients that say, hey, yeah, it's really easy to do a role play when the topic is about conversation skills. But what about when the topic of focus is something different, like time management, or something that's a little bit more process orientated?
Yeah, absolutely. So demonstrations and either by the team member or a coach can be useful, but ideally that alone isn't the only form of practice, as it's really good to simulate how it would be performed on the job. So that's fine, you're right, when it comes to conversational type interactions. But if you're doing something that's maybe a little bit more process based or task based, what a really great way of doing it is a coach coming up with a unique situation, and asking the team member to talk through in detailed steps, a process that they were planning on working on, and could take the place of a role play, but it still needs to be that back and forth between both of the parties. That is where we see the most use, because it's putting the team member in an unplanned situation and seeing how they can adapt to that on the go. An example of how that might sound might be something like, let's have a look at this contents page here. You can see that we need to make a few tweaks there. Talk me through how you would prioritise those changes provided, and that you may have only 2 hours to complete the task, something like that.
Yeah, right. So, you can still do that when coaching remotely. Role plays can be typed over the chat. They can be shown over the camera, what's been done. The key thing here is that there's a two-way interaction that requires the team member to be quite specific. They either practice it in a role play, or they practice it by spelling out exactly what they're going to do step after step after step, right?
Exactly. So it's those two key components. You're right, the two-way and the really clear step-by-stepping. We wouldn't assess it as practice if a team member just sort of vaguely outlined what might be done just in general concepts.
Yeah, not strong enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so when we're looking at the discuss link in the current state phase, we talked about how it helps team members understand the cause and effect of their behaviours and gain acceptance of their baseline. So similarly with the discuss link in the desired state phase, it's all about checking team members really understand that the desired outcome and desired behaviours are linked. So connecting the dots helps ensure team members understand how their behavioural change is going to help them get closer to the target that they desire. And by not discussing that link, it may result in a lack of understanding of the why. It also makes it hard for the team member, for the coach, to see, team member to see the benefits of making that change. It provides them with a purpose larger than just you need to do this. They get that benefit out of it as an internal motivation to want to change. Let's have a listen how that link might sound.
So if you did that restated inquiry that you just showed me then to all of your customers, what do you think would happen?
I think I'll be top of the team leaderboard in no time. But yeah, I could definitely see that the restate would really make sure that I've got the inquiry right and that the customer and I are on the same page so that we can get to the resolution as quickly as possible.
Well, I can't wait to see that call time plummet.
Yeah, so I just wanted quickly just draw your attention to the discuss part of that behaviour. And it's just like when we've spoken about so many of our other behaviours, discussing and collaborating with your team members around the link is really just creates that logical and tangible recipe for a team member to follow. It reinforces the idea that the desired outcome is achievable and that with simple behaviour change. And the discuss ingredient isn't there, you might just have a really confused, little team member pudding. Listen to how that might sound if it wasn't done so well.
And that's it, what you just demonstrated. That will absolutely reduce the call time that we've been worried about, won't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So I know, Dave, you love a good discuss link, especially in the current state phase. So what impact do you think the link has on the desired state?
Yeah, look, so often it's the aha moment, Kate. So it's the moment when it all clicks and the team member sees the connection between making simple, easy to do changes to their behavior and actually delivering a better outcome. And for me as the coach, that's when my confidence, that the actions are going to get done absolutely skyrockets. So when I can see and hear that they get the connection, they get the why, I know that the change is going to happen.
Yeah, great. Exactly. Okay, and moving on to our final behaviour in desired state, we've got the buy-in. So for our return guests who have attended some of our other sessions, this behaviour will be really familiar to you, the buy-in. So for our newbies, a buy-in is essentially where we ask a team member to commit to continue to improve on their journey. Each of the ACDC phases includes a buy-in as the last behaviour, and it checks in with a team member to ensure that they're, incentivised and willing to keep moving on. Here we are looking for a team member to commit to working on a behaviour before moving forward. So checking in to make sure the team member is willing to demonstrate a new behaviour in the future and and willing to set a goal around it. This encourages the team member to take ownership over the development journey. It's also a safety net, checking in whether a team member needs more advice or guidance or further discussion about the behaviour. Without this desired buy-in, the coach can't be sure that the team member is really committed to working on making any of the discussed changes and setting a goal to work on it moving forwards, which may lead to lower levels of motivation and drive for behavioural change. And it also means that the coach might not hold them as accountable because they haven't got that absolute certainty that the team member's on board to begin with. And let me play an audio example of how this might sound.
So our new phrasing of the summary of the call.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Are you happy to try and implement that on your calls moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. Ready to give it a go.
Great. So that team member, absolutely sounded on board with moving forward.
It's really quick, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and once you get it, you get one. You know how to do your buy-in once. It's a matter of just tweaking it slightly so it's applicable in all of those ACDC phases, and it has such a big effect. Okay, so we've been through the 5 behaviours now. It's time for a little game. We've done this one before when it came to current state. This game's available, well, I say game, it's a quiz. It's available in our GIST platform. So let's jump over there and do this. So here we have a question, and the question is, which of the following would be a good question for a coach to ask to establish the desired outcome? And there are 4 options here. And I want you just to pick the one that would be the best question for a coach to ask. Our first question will be, what do you think you could do differently to get a better outcome? Second one, I think it would be great if next time the customer rated you outstanding. What do you think? Third, how about we aim for you to lift your sale results? And fourth, talk me through different outcomes. What would make you feel successful? So grab that annotation tool. Which question do you think would be the best to get that, to establish that desired outcome from your team members? Okay. Oh, we've got a lot for number 4. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's go with the consensus. And we'll go with number 4, and we'll submit that. See how we went. Fantastic. Well done. Looks like we got it right. Yeah. So that question really just it was a discuss question. They were asking the team members' input and asking what they what they think would make them feel successful. Fantastic. All right. Let's jump back into, I think it's, sorry, got to find my screen and I think I've lost you. Sorry guys. Lost the window somehow. Let me just, there we go. Fantastic. Sorry about that. Okay. So as always, we've gone through our behaviours. We've got a fairly clear idea on how they are and what we're looking for. Let's have a listen, and we'll listen to a whole little section of the desired state phase, and keep a little note on some pen and paper if you can, and then we'll jump in with our annotation tools and tell me what you heard. Let's have a listen now.
Right, so we need to change the overall outcome, don't we?
Oh yeah, definitely. We don't want customers like Peter to feel like that.
Yeah, agreed. So how would you rather customers feel after a call?
I think we obviously want satisfaction, and we want Peter and everyone, I guess, to come away from the call feeling like it's resolved, and I guess that peace of mind.
Yeah, a bit of peace of mind, that's it. And so you mentioned earlier that the summary at the close might have been the problem. What would you rather have that sound like?
I just think a little bit more comprehensive, particularly about whether there is anything left for them to do. Just in the sense of, our corrections team will complete that within 24 hours or something, and there isn't anything else that you need to do on your end, Peter.
Yeah, and if Peter doesn't have peace of mind after that, gosh.
Well, yeah, here's hoping.
And you think there is something specific about adding that next steps for the customer that really has an impact?
Yeah, definitely. Adding that bit in particular, I think, just because it's really clear and it's really informative, and the customer leaves with a really clear sense of understanding and, I guess, our buzzword for this session, peace of mind.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it any better myself. So are you happy to commit to this new addition to the summary and use that moving forward?
Yes, yep, definitely.
All right, grab that annotation tool. Tell me what you heard.
A bit longer audios this time, Kate. There's actually a lot more to listen to, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You'll find that, especially with the, both the current state and the desired state, that discussion of, the outcomes and the behaviours does take a little bit longer.
It looks like everyone is on the money, though, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at that. Poor little practice all by himself. Okay, well, let's see how we went. As always, I'm going to play the recording again and I'll flash the dialogue up and the behaviours as they occur.
Right, so we need to change the overall outcome, don't we?
Oh yeah, definitely. We don't want customers like Peter to feel like that.
Yeah, agreed. So how would you rather customers feel after a call?
I think we obviously want satisfaction, and we want Peter and everyone, I guess, to come away from the call feeling like it's resolved, and I guess that peace of mind.
Yeah.
We've lost our recording. Okay, sorry. We'll keep playing it. We might not be able to. What's happened with the audio? Let me just play it through again, and then we can go through and have another listen to the behaviours.
I think we obviously want satisfaction, and we want Peter and everyone, I guess, to come away from the call feeling like it's resolved, and I guess that peace of mind.
Yeah, a bit of peace of mind, that's it. And so you mentioned earlier that the summary at the close might have been the problem. What would you rather have that sound like?
I just think a little bit more comprehensive, particularly about whether there is anything left for them to do. Just in the sense of, our corrections team will complete that within 24 hours or something, and there isn't anything else that you need to do on your end, Peter.
Yeah, and if Peter doesn't have peace of mind after that, gosh.
Well, yeah, here's hoping.
And you think there is something specific about adding that next steps for the customer that really has an impact?
Yeah, definitely. Adding that bit in particular, I think, just because it's really clear and it's really informative, and the customer leaves with a really clear sense of understanding and, I guess, our buzzword for this session, peace of mind.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it any better myself. So are you happy to commit to this new addition to the summary and use that moving forward?
Yes, yep, definitely.
Fantastic. So sorry about the audio there, but you guys were spot on. So we heard here that that practice really was just that one-way demonstration by the team member. And because this was a conversational coaching session, there was absolutely that opportunity for the coach to do a two-way role play and really help the team member get familiar and get confident with how that would happen in a real coaching session. So we had our desired behaviours there. You all heard them. You really nailed it there. You guys are right on the ball with this desired state. Got a beautiful little discuss link in there and a very enthusiastic buy-in at the end. Well done. Let's listen to one more and see how we go.
So unfortunately, we lost Carrie from that call just because of the time taken. What would you have rather happened for Carrie?
I think definitely would have just wanted her to have the first time resolution and to feel satisfied that her inquiry is getting resolved and that we do care, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So just before, we spoke about this idea of being on hold and how we can keep the customer informed. What does that look like?
I think I've just got to be proactive, and when that timer goes off, and if I still haven't had the solution, I've got to jump back on and give them a bit of an update.
Yeah, that sounds great. I guess, what does that actually sound like? Let's run a quick role play. Let's pretend that I've been on hold for 2 minutes and you're looking into an unusual additional charge that I received.
Yep, okay, all right. Buzz. Jim, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, great. I just wanted to check in. I know it's been a couple of minutes. I'm still going, but I'll know what the next steps are in about 2 more minutes.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. It was, really nice to get an update. That was so simple but so effective, and also great imitation of your timer going on.
Why, thank you. If I wasn't in superannuation, I would have been an alarm clock.
And you would have excelled. But yes, back to that update. How do you think that made me as a customer feel?
Well, me just checking in. I guess that, you're cared about and that your individual experience is important to us. It also reduces the possibility that you'll get frustrated and hang up, I guess.
Yeah, terrific. All right, let's set a goal.
Okay, I'm just going to switch the screens. What did we hear here? What behaviours did we miss? Was there any that we missed? What do we think? Good. Sharing. We'll beg back on in a sec. So let me just. All right, Dave, talk me through what you think you heard there. What behaviours did you hear?
Well, I definitely heard the desired outcomes, and then there was a pretty good job of doing the desired behaviours. Yep. The coach then and nearly didn't, but then actually got to actually do a bit of practice and did the role play, put them on hold, which was actually quite well done, and the fact that it was a bit lighthearted. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Discuss the link and buy in. Well,
yeah. You reckon that? Yeah, you both of them there. So you reckon it was pretty much a perfect session?
it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully I've got my recording sorted now, and we'll jump forward and let's see how we went. Okay. Right.
So unfortunately, we lost Carrie from that call just because of the time taken. What would you have rather happened for Carrie?
I think definitely would have just wanted her to have the first time resolution and to feel satisfied that her inquiry is getting resolved and that we do care, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So just before, we spoke about this idea of being on hold and how it can keep the customer informed. What does that look like?
I think I've just got to be proactive, and when that timer goes off, and if I still haven't had the solution, I've got to jump back on and give them a bit of an update.
Yeah, that sounds great. I guess, what does that actually sound like? Let's run a quick role play. Let's pretend that I've been on hold for 2 minutes and you're looking into an unusual additional charge that I received.
Yep, okay, all right. Buzz. Jim, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, great. I just wanted to check in. I know it's been a couple of minutes. I'm still going, but I'll know what the next steps are in about 2 more minutes.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. It was, really nice to get an update. That was so simple but so effective, and also great imitation of your timer going on.
Why, thank you. If I wasn't in superannuation, I would have been an alarm clock.
And you would have excelled. But yes, back to that update. How do you think that made me as a customer feel?
Well, me just checking in. I guess that, you're cared about and that your individual experience is important to us. It also reduces the possibility that you'll get frustrated and hang up, I guess.
Yeah, terrific. All right, let's set a goal.
So, yeah, absolutely. Right until that very last minute, fantastic little desired state. You can hear there just from that coach, all right, let's set a goal. He didn't seek that team member's buy-in at that point. It would have been great. Would you like to set a goal on that? Would be a way to tweak that in order to get that team member buy-in.
Yeah, it's worth saying here that these scenarios are actually real life scenarios that we've heard and assessed. Obviously, we've recorded them and de-identified the client, etc. But they are real life scenarios. People actually saying these things. We couldn't write these things as their original as, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is what I listen to all day, and you know, you can hear how absolutely they're going to be completely unique in their own way. Yeah,
And you can, even from the last one, you can tell how everyone having their ACDC sort of framework, how easy it is to kind of see and hear them. Sometimes they're a bit tricky and not so clear, but you know, there's these different phases that these behaviours are very observable, right?
Yeah, yep. And that last little practice, you know, was almost a perfect example of that mix between a sort of a process and still part of a conversational coaching session. They were talking about the process of, you know, setting an alarm clock and going back to a customer in this point. But it didn't have to be a customer. It could have been for anything, you know, setting yourself a timer to finish a task, to keep yourself accountable. So that's exactly the kind of way you can practice those in a two-way situational way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so there's our desired state behaviours, the 5 that we've just gone through. And they each play, you know, a really important role in building that team member's understanding and ownership of the behaviours that need to be demonstrated in order to achieve a desired result. So let's look at how often these behaviours are actually done. Here we have the performance of 500 baseline coaching conversations. So the biggest takeaway for me here is that 3 in 4 coaches are discussing and workshopping behaviours that they would like to improve. So that's fantastic. That's 75% of coaching sessions. They're really trying to nut out exactly what needs to be changed. What do they want their behaviours to look at in order to reach that, you know, that goal that they're trying to achieve. But if you then move on to that next behaviour, that practice, less than half are actually practicing them in a way that gives the, you know, the team member confidence in order to, you know, perform these in their sessions, in you know, in the field moving forward. They haven't got that clarity in order to perform them by themselves. So in our session, if you remember back in our session on the agenda phase, we discussed the impact of having a strong agenda can have on your subsequent parts of a coaching session. So I want you just to have a look at this next graph here. All right, so here we've got those same baseline coaching sessions, but we've separated into those that began with a strong agenda and those that began with a weak agenda. And I've got them, their performance, how it's carried through into the desired state. So what we can see here is that the performance on all of those 5 behaviours for those that started with a strong agenda was stronger than those that started with a weak agenda. So what I want you to do now, I want to get your input. I want to know why. Like, why is that the case? So jump in the chat and just, you know, in a couple of words, have you got any ideas why that might be the case? Why is starting off with a strong agenda, you know, resulting in a really much stronger performance when it gets back into desired state?
Yeah, it's a stark difference, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look at those 2 lines. You know, I'm sure in your coaching sessions you've got a bit of a hunch as to why that might be happening. Any idea is a good idea. Chuck anything down. Doesn't need to be you know, finely worded or practiced. So just chuck any ideas down there.
Yeah. So we've got here, Kate, you know, creates a structure and sets a clear expectation and direction. You know, the agenda phase has mapped out a plan to follow. It gives a bit of clarity. You know, these are the kind of things that are coming in the chat.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. You know, it's that you know, maybe they're held accountable to something that they've set up early on, so they feel like they need to include it. You know, they've committed to it early on. Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, yeah, excellent. Some great ideas, and absolutely all on them. There's no one reason why this is the case. But I think, you know, we can see that the performance and desired state behaviours is greater for the strong agenda group. But you know, if we have a look at this, there's none more stark than that practice behaviour. Look at that, a 52%, you know, jump, 53% difference in behaviour there.
Oh, it's huge. You think about the opportunity cost for an organisation when only 50% of coaching sessions actually involve some type of practice-based role play. You know, how does that actually impact the implementation of the outcomes of coaching sessions through organisations. I mean, it's an enormous insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all well and good to do the coaching and talk about it, but if the team member doesn't leave with the confidence to be able to do it in real life, then it's almost wasted time in a lot of situations. Yeah. So I think that a lot of this jump in the behaviour can be attributed to the fact that the coach has really prepared for the session. They've set an agenda, they've had that agenda in mind of what they would like to cover, and they're more likely to conduct a comprehensive desired state if that's the case. And in particular, they're more likely to practice do a role play practice. The thought and planning in the lead up to the coaching session has given the coach time to consider, how to work on a team member's problem behaviours or outcomes, and brainstorm ways to improve, meaning that when they reach this part of the coaching conversation, they're more confident in the process and have maybe thought of a couple of situations that they could role play. Rather than getting there and being a little stunned and a bit scared to conduct that that practice themselves. Like, we all know team members don't really like it, but coaches don't particularly like it either, especially if they're unprepared and they haven't thought about it in advance. So this preparation means that they can help guide struggling team members, rather than being quite rudderless and waiting for some miracle realization. So you could say that, practicing practice makes perfect.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's time to set a goal. We've done this before if you've been involved in our sessions, but essentially what we want to do now is set a SMART goal. We've got the 5 behaviours in the desired state phase. The desired outcomes, the desired behaviours, the practice, discuss, link, and the buy-in. So which behaviour do you really want to work on? Which one are you maybe struggling with a bit, or maybe you're not even including it in your coaching sessions? Which one do you want to commit to focusing on?
Practice for me, Kate.
Practice, practice, practice. All right. So next step will be to estimate how many times you'll do this behaviour. So Dave, how many times are you going to practice in the next week?
Well, I think I've got at least 6 coaching sessions booked for next week, I reckon, and 50% is not good enough, so I will get that done in 5 of 6.
Wow, that's great. Okay, and so how are you going to hold yourself accountable to that? How are you going to measure it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I can make a note in the, because we've got our gist where we do our goals and all that kind of stuff. So I can actually just make a note that it was actually done in 5 out of the 6 coaching sessions that were done, and I can review that at the end of the week pretty easy. Yep. Or I could just keep a little notepad on the side of my desk with just tick it as I do all 6 with 6 boxes, for example, and just tick it. If I get to 5, that's done.
Absolutely. That's all you need. Yeah, just a little corner of your notebook. Fantastic. And how confident are you that you're going to get that practice in 5 or 6 of your sessions?
It's really doable. It's got to be like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Easy to do. Just sometimes you forget, don't you? So I won't forget, and easy to do.
Excellent. Yeah, keep that notebook open so you have that visual reminder every time.
Yep.
All right, guys, you set yourself a goal. Dave, congratulations. You're on your way to better coaching sessions. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. That's the end of our deep dive into the desired state phase. I trust you're leaving with a little bit of insight into how to improve your sessions. And we'd love to see you on one of our future sessions. Obviously, we're done for 2021. But we're going to be back in February next year to move on to our last phase of the ACDC process platform, the commitment, and then we're going to move on to some more problem points that you might have seen in your coaching sessions. So we've got plenty more in store for you in 2022. But for our observers, stick around, and Dave's going to have a little chat to you about the ACDC and GIST platforms. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Kate. Terrific. For us, having an effective desired state phase of our coaching conversation, well, it may be the most important phase when driving behavioural outcomes from your team. Even more important than the commitment phase, because it's where you get that clarity. It's where you get that specificity required for your team members to go, oh, I get that. And then it makes the commitment phase just a really easy thing to do. So again, Kate, thank you very much for all of your input. That's terrific. For your observers, please feel free to hang around for just a few more minutes. What we want to do is show you how you could become an expert at ACDC coaching with us online. And we kind of believe it to be the most effective behavioural coaching tool available on the market today. So if we can pop our slides back up, the whole process of becoming a great ACDC coach is pretty simple. You first have to learn the ACDC behaviours, and then you've got to put them into a practice, and you've got to apply them. And then, of course, you've got to get some feedback about how you're going. And in our experience, the fastest way to increase your confidence as a coach is to listen to your own coaching sessions. It's amazing how transformational it is when you can see or hear yourself doing your own coaching session. The changes that you need to make are clear, and the changes that you need to make become immediate, and they implemented in the very next coaching session. And so with our online ACDC program, coaches log in directly to the platform, and they take the learning platform straight into their real life coaching sessions. So on their iPad, on their iPhone, on their laptop, and they just push this record button and they record it straight into the platform, and they can either assess it immediately after their coaching session, or they can download it for assessment later using the ACDC coaching behaviours as their assessment framework. And it really is the definition of on-the-job training. Their coaching behaviours are tracked over time, and this becomes really important as it highlights both their strengths, but also identifies the behaviours that need to focus. Now, the thing about this is that create a personalised learning journey, as no two coaches graphs are the same, and it strips hours out of the whole learning process and out of the coaching process by actually clicking only on the behaviours that they need to focus on. And in our experience, it's the fastest way to become a great behavioural coach is just to focus on the things that you need to. In this case, you can see that the coach isn't doing any practice as an example. And so as a result, they're much less likely to be able to drive effective behavioural change. I mean, all they need to do in our platform is to select the behaviour to focus on. They click on practice, and they can watch a quick video on what the behaviour in question is all about. Let's just take a quick look at practice.
Well, here we are. Now that you know the desired behaviour your coachee will be working on, what do you think we do next?
My general approach is to rush ahead like a bull at a gate and hope for the best.
Okay, that's not really a strategy. So what might, say, a top sports person or musician do if they were working towards getting better at something?
You're going to say practice, aren't you?
Spot on. And the best way to do that is to role play.
With me as the star?
Actually, we'll take turns. Thanks. So let's say we're working on a customer service behaviour. I might get you to play the customer so I can demonstrate how the desired behaviour should look.
But I thought I was meant to be practicing the behaviour.
Well, you are, but sometimes it can really help the coachee if you demonstrate first. It doesn't really matter who goes first. What matters is that your coachee works out how to do the behaviour the right way.
But what if the desired behaviour is something you can't role play, like doing paperwork or managing your time better?
Oh, it's a great pickup.
Well, thank you.
Because practice is all about learning by doing. So if it's paperwork, then have a blank copy ready for them to complete. If it's a planning process like time management, then complete a hypothetical plan in the diary or map out all the steps involved. The point is, get them to practice the desired behaviour so you can see it and make sure they're heading down the right path.
Okay, now let's do the role play thing so I can be the customer.
You seem super keen all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's mostly because when I'm the customer, it means I'm always right.
Except when you're wrong.
Right. Was that wrong?
So You may recognise Shane Jacobson there and Pia Miranda. You know, we've engaged some of Australia's best storytellers to engage your leaders in the content, to pull them in, if you like, to their learning journey. And their videos, they're engaging, they're effective, and they just make learning a little bit more fun. So if you want to know a little bit more or have a more in-depth look at the ACDC program online, or you want to hear some more case studies about how it's used to drive amazing results in business, then please let me know. My details are on the screen there. We'd love to see how we could help you and your coaches drive better performance outcomes for your business. So that's it. Thanks very much for sticking around for a sneak peek into how Grist are using self-assessment and calibration to help leaders become great coaches. Enjoy your rest of the afternoon. Kate, thank you very much. Merry Christmas, and a Merry Christmas to you all. And we look forward to seeing you again in early 2022. Thanks. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, everyone.